and by the end of the fight, his face was hamburger. So, new champion Cain Velasquez, and Stevie, I'll ask this off the top. Do you think we'll see Cain versus JDS 3?
He's already asked for it. Junior has put out the word that he wants the new fight and to get a chance to get his title back because, quote, he didn't execute the game plan he wanted to.
Now, do you put this fight in the States, Brazil, or Canada?
I think you kind of have to put it somewhere in North America because if you put it in Brazil, that's not really neutral territory for either fighter, but if you put it somewhere like Las Vegas, you'll have all the Mexicans and all the Brazilians all flying to Vegas, and it'll be even.
You could put it in Canada, maybe in Vancouver.
I don't know. I don't know if Cain is as much of a draw in Canada as he would be in California or Vegas.
Well, maybe you put it if they want to really sell it on neutral ground and make that like the selling point of the pay-per-view. We could always put that at the Rogers Center, 55,000.
That's true. I'm not disputing that, but then I think if you and Ryan and who else?
Paul Lazenby?
Paul Lazenby and no, I wasn't even thinking of him though, but yeah, him. But Sideswipe. I think you guys would all like it if every UFC pay-per-view was in Canada.
Make my job a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, it would. You'd get to more shows too.
Absolutely. But we have a lot of stuff to talk about. We have to talk about Saturday's pay-per-view. We got to talk all the news of the week. We have to talk Bellator. And we do have a winner for the 2012 prediction game right here on Glove Up or Shut Up.
We do. So, Peter, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, let's start with UFC 155. As we said, JDS getting beat by Cain Velasquez in the main event, 5-round decision. And the scores were, as one would expect, very lopsided. And I have a friend of mine that actually predicted Cain in a decision. And I looked at him and I was like, are you like smoking something? Because I did not think this fight would go 5 rounds. The first fight went 64 seconds. And he's like, no, trust me. It's going to go to decision. I texted him back after the fight, and I said, you should go to Vegas.
What I think is even funnier is I put our pay-per-view predictions up on YouTube at youtube.com/AngryMarks.com, and somebody immediately started berating me and going, why does everybody think Cain's going to beat Junior just because he beat Bigfoot Silva? JDS and Bigfoot Silva aren't even in the same league. And I just left it alone. I didn't reply to it. I didn't say anything. But when the fights happened and everything went down the way it did, I just kind of looked at that comment again and I snickered like, yeah, we saw this coming. You just are, I'm not saying Junior Dos Santos fans are brainwashed, but come on. Everybody knew that in that first fight, Cain was walking wounded. This time he was ready. It was going to be a completely different fight.
So I think it'd be Brian Alvarez would call him a fool.
Yeah, a fool. A definite fool.
And shout out to Brian Alvarez's guest today on Figure 4 Online. Buddy Wayne makes his return before his second heart surgery tomorrow.
Yep. Apparently he had an aortic valve that got dilated to like 6 or 7, whatever the measurement is, and that's really bad. It was like ready to burst at any moment. So Godspeed to Buddy Wayne. I'm glad he's getting the surgery tomorrow.
Yeah. So hopefully, maybe one day we'll have him on this show, or maybe Thursday night AMP.
Actually, we've had him on Thursday night AMP.
But it must have been before my tenure.
I'm not sure. It was right after he had his first heart surgery. I know that, and I know I co-host for the night was Craig Proper, so
I think it was before my time.
Must have been.
All right. Well, anyways, UFC 155 semi-main event was Jim Miller and Joe Lauzon in a bloodbath. J-Lo, oh my God, he got busted open really bad, a nasty gash, and the doctor looked at it and said he was good to go, and Miller almost lost the fight on numerous occasions, and the final score was Jim Miller winning unanimous decision 29-28 across the board. And oof, like people who watched the main event and they commented on how crimson the mat was. You should have seen J-Lo's face there. I mean, he was the crimson mask of the night, like harkening the days of Ric Flair.
Yeah. Even though I got this prediction wrong when we did them last week, I kind of feel vindicated in a way because, one, it was such a close fight, and two, because you said it yourself. There were many, many times in that fight where Miller was in danger of being caught and submitted. I mean, you know, as much as Joe Lauzon got beat up, he never quit.
No, he would not quit. He's one of those tough fighters that Dana White loves. And if he continues giving performances like that of never give up and always trying to go for the finish, he'll always have a job with the UFC.
And he'll be accumulating a lot of fight bonuses for that kind of performance.
Oh yeah, I think he's not at Chris Lytle record territory yet, but he's on his way.
Definitely so.
UFC 155 drew a reported attendance of 12,423 with a live gate of $3.286 million.
That sounds about right for a Las Vegas pay-per-view at the end of the year.
Yep, well, continuing on the card, Costa Philippou beat Tim Boetsch in the third round, 2 minutes and 11 seconds with TKO. And Philippou, I predicted him to win the fight. I'm glad he won the fight. Student of Matt Serra's, and he only took up MMA a few years ago. And if those who watched the preview special the UFC put out, they really told his story really good. The one thing I'm wondering is who's next for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was two guys that are sort of in the middle of the pack in that division, so one of them was going to move up with a win, so you'd have to start putting him against like the top 10 guys in that class now.
Well, maybe you put him up against the next fight. Yushin Okami beating Alan Belcher via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Okami Philippou would be a good fight.
And I like that idea because Okami is in the position now where he's already had 2 title shots and it hasn't gone his way, and if he's going to get a third one, he's going to have to beat a laundry list of guys, so you might as well put him against everybody in the division who's not the champion.
Exactly. Middleweight division is one of those things where it's a stacked division, and Philippou, you said it yourself, he's going to fight the top 10 fighters, but man, the journey along the way, he's going to fight some really good middleweights.
Right, and if he can't beat Okami, then he's never getting to a title shot. Okami is kind of the gatekeeper now.
Speaking of gatekeepers, Chris Leben defeated by Derek Brunson via unanimous decision 29-28. This fight reminded me of the UFC show in Denver a couple of years ago where the heavyweights looked like they were swimming in sand for the entire 3 rounds, and it seemed like both guys had the adrenaline dump after the first round, and they were going at 50% of the pace the rest of the fight, and it was really bad. The fans in attendance really hated this fight.
That's really a shame, too, because Chris Leben is known as being one of the most exciting fighters in UFC history, so for him to have a bad night, it just started things off on a wrong note. In fact, a lot of the people that I've heard, read, or talked to about UFC 155, they said up until the co-main event, it was kind of a boring, lackluster pay-per-view, and Leben did not start things out on a good note.
No, absolutely not. And that's it for the main card. The preliminary card, I just want to touch on a few things. One of the judges, I don't know who it was, but Joe Rogan said this person should never judge another MMA fight. It was the Jamie Varner-Melvin Gillard fight.
Oh, yeah.
30-27, 30-27, and 27-30 for your winner, Jamie Varner.
I knew this. I had a feeling this was going to come up, and Joe Rogan makes those kind of bombastic statements about judging all the time, but in this case, I totally agree with him.
Yeah, well, first judge, 30-27. One of those rounds low on all 3.
I don't know if it was Paul Lakeby, Sean Wheelock, or some other guest of our show off the top of my head, but one of them suggested the idea that there needs to be like a judge scorecard review where like if your scorecard is radically different from those of your peers, you get a grade, and it's like you get an A grade if everybody's score is close, and you get an F if you get absolutely the opposite of everybody else.
I think Big John McCarthy's school of judging that they should go through. Like they should have accreditation or something.
Yeah, well, in this case, that judge gets an F for his score.
I just want to mention Todd Duffy winning knockout of the night over Phil DeFries. First round, 204. Hell of a knockout here.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be going Phil DeFries' way in UFC, and that's a shame because he's a nice guy, and I really enjoyed talking to him in February, but sometimes guys get in UFC and they just get overwhelmed by it, and I have a feeling if he went back down a level and worked some more and came back up, he might just be a better fighter.
And first fight of the night, the flyweight fight between John Moraga and Chris Caricio. Only submission of the night, so automatically Moraga gets submission of the night with a guillotine choke in the third round with 1 minute and 11 seconds. So a nice little pinned up against the cage, so just sneak your arm under there and just crank the neck, and That's it.
Yep. Good night, Irene, as Michael Schiavello would say. So how much were those bonuses anyway?
$65,000.
Not bad.
Not bad for a night's work. And the fight of the night obviously was Jim Miller and J-Lo, sorry. And looking at the reported,
actually sounds better than J-Lo.
I know. I don't know why J-Lo. Anyways.
That's why I always say Joe-Lo, because J-Lo just sounds like Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I did want to point out, the reported payout, Cain Velasquez only won $200,000 for his victory. That includes his win bonus, where JDS, if you, basically for losing the fight, he got paid double what Cain got to win.
Well, that's sort of the champion's perk. That makes sense, but I'm sure that with endorsements and other considerations that Dana gives him off the record, Cain made significantly more than $200,000.